Welcome to the St. Jude Church broadcast. We are a church where the lost can go, the saved can grow, becoming a family of happy fellowship. Our motto is supported by Ephesians 4, verse 11. Our prayer is and always will be that God will give you a revelation from this broadcast. And again, I say, welcome. I want us to go back to Numbers 11 and notice two verses, verse 1 and verse 2. Last week we kind of had verse 4 and we looked at the reasons why they complained. They had a lust for some flesh. Hello, somebody. And a whole lot of us got some lust that's causing us to complain. But look at verse 1 and verse 2 of Numbers 11. Numbers 11. Verse 1 reads, "Now the people complained about their hardship in the hearing of the Lord. And when he heard them, his anger was aroused. Then fire from the Lord burned among them and consumed them. Some of the outer parts or outer skirts of the camp. When the people cried out to Moses, he prayed to the Lord, and the fire died down." I want us to use for reference this morning how to deal with the fire that our complaining started. How to deal with the fire that our complaining started. Every fire started somehow. Every issue had its basis. A cigarette just didn't jump in your mouth. You had to take it out of the pack and light the cigarette and then draw on it. Even when your body made you cough and gag, you kept on drawing. Every issue has, somebody said, its basis. So this morning's message is a continuation from last Sunday. We entitled last Sunday's message, "Complaining Compromises God's Compassion." And what that means is, whatever God had for you, because you're complaining, you denied it, you hindered it, you hampered it, you halted in some form or some fashion. You know, a person can come to you in a real nasty attitude, and you'll do what you ask them to do, but you won't do it in the manner that's pleasing to everybody. Do I have any help in the house? You ever been to a place where the waiter just treated you like, and you had decided, if this person get a tip from me, it'll snow in Memphis, Alaska. Every issue finds its basis in something. And so this complaining finds, or this complaining spirit finds its basis in our 5 levels of communication, but particularly 3 of them that we mentioned last week. And the first one was frivolous talking. You find that just opening your mouth sometimes is just complaining. And you know when you're liked or not, depending on the conversation that come up. I had a friend of mine at work. As long as he wasn't talking about how miserable things was, we could be around him. But that joker get talking about how miserable it was, he'll have you miserable all day long. And so whenever the conversation shifts to problems of the world, we say, man, I see you. I got to go back to work now. People will just leave you when you are miserable. When you are miserable and trying to make them miserable. Miserable talking. And then secondly, factual conversation. What you're talking about is actually true. It's actually happened. And you complain so much about it that the folks around you will tell you, man, listen, we already know it has happened. Leave it alone. Let it go. Have you ever had to tell somebody, man, enough is enough? Yeah, they treated you wrong. They passed you over. Yeah, you deserved the job. You didn't get it. So move on. Quit. Do something. Just leave the conversation alone. And the third one is conversation based on feelings. And that's pretty much the one that all of our complaining spirit roots itself in. Feelings. Feelings have a tendency to motivate a complaining spirit. I'm not feeling good today. And then you make everybody around you miserable. Pastor tell a joke, you won't frown, so the folks around you won't frown, won't laugh, because they're scared they're going to mess up your misery. You came in not speaking, so everybody on your row don't speak. You came in not hugging, so everybody on your row won't hug. All because of some feeling. I woke up on the wrong side of the bed. Well, go back to bed. Get up on the right side. Do something. Just don't come around me. How many of y'all know that a complaining spirit develops an atmosphere? Do I have any help in the house? A complaining spirit dilutes your attitude. A complaining spirit is a diversion to one's action, and it diminishes one's activity. The evidence of a complaining spirit is that it never offers hope. Have you ever seen anybody that complains all the time bring some hope? It's always self-centered. It's always about how miserable they are. I'm reminded of a little boy. He was born after his sister was born, and his sister was born with a kotos, nothing but a body, no arms, no legs. And she couldn't even comb her own hair. Somebody had to comb her hair and do this and do that. And her brother, who had legs and arms, could go and come and do as he pleased, still complained about his sister who didn't have nothing. And finally he said to her, don't you just want to die? She said, no, I just want you to leave. Always complaining. And she wound up writing a book that was a bestseller and a great artist, and she painted with her teeth. She didn't complain about her condition. She did something about it. And I pause to tell you, folks that complain all the time can't do nothing because they're always doing what? Complaining. So the evidence of a complaining spirit is one that never offers hope. It is always self-centered. It does not belong with those who do not complain. So I got to pause and ask the question, why are you hanging around complainers if you don't complain? A complaining person, what have darkness to do with light? And yet we hang around dark folks all the time. Do I have any help in the house? You think you can save them? No, they're going to mess around here and sink you. Because birds of a feather. And one of the things I've learned in my little life is that the company you keep has a tendency to say to people what kind of person you are. They have never met you, don't know nothing about you. They just see who you hang out with. And if you hang out with complaining folks, I assure you the people that see you from afar going to avoid you because they figure you are a complainer. But not only does not a complaining spirit belong with those that don't complain, a complaining spirit is contagious. Lastly, it is not a friend to you nor to the people that you hang out with. A complaining spirit don't do nothing to benefit anybody. The question that is before us this morning, what do we do about the fire that our complaining spirit has set ablaze? How do I address what my complaining spirit has set on fire? How do I put out the fire in my house, on my job, with my friends, with myself? You ever looked at the mirror and get tired of you complaining to you? Okay, I'll leave that alone. How do we put out this fire? The culprit for setting fires in our lives as well as in the lives of others is what's in that person's heart. Turn to the person at beside you and tell them, it's a heart issue. Your complaining spirit is a heart issue. Do I have any help in the house? Scripture teaches us that there's life and death in the power of a tongue. And what it simply means is the tongue can only say what's planted in your heart. For out of the heart flows the issues of life. And I just pause to tell you, sometimes we need just to put a pause on our tongue. Do I have any help in the house? Before you open your mouth, you ought to stop and think about it. Paul says it in that Corinthians 13, verse 11. When we were children, that's how we act. But when we become adult, we need to change from acting like children. So how do we move from children to adult? He says, before you open your mouth, understand what you're about to say. Evaluate your thoughts. Understand what you're about to say before you open up your mouth. If you want to put out some fires, stop complaining. And the fire that you have set ablaze, it is incumbent upon you to change the conversation. You know, one of the things that bothers me a lot when I counsel young people is when couples refuse to acknowledge it may be their fault. Do I have any help in the house? Because y'all quiet on me. Am I on the wrong street or am I on your street? But it's amazing to me that when couples fall out, somebody has to be the adult in the situation and say, listen, before we set our house on fire, before we destroy all that we have accomplished, let us take a 15-minute pause from complaining and griping and fussing and arguing. Let us take a 15, but listen now, you cannot let the sun go down on that anger. You're going to have to deal with it, but give yourself some space instead of always complaining at each other. You bring up one thing, he bring up one thing. That's a story told about a man who told his pastor, my wife is a historian. He said, no, you don't mean historian, do you? You mean she's hysterical. He said, no, she's a historian. I said, what do you mean? She bring up everything. She go all the way back the day before we got married. She bring up, she's a historian. She ain't forgotten nothing. She's not hysterical. She's just somebody ought to get this. As a historian. And I pause to tell you, at some point in time, you need to put down the historian and stop being hysterical and sit down and try to reason. The culprit for setting fires in our life is the heart and its connection to the tongue. James says in the 3rd chapter that you cannot get good water from a filthy fountain. You're not going to get you're not going to get figs from an olive tree. And I just pause to say to each of us, at some point in time, you're going to have to conclude, just maybe, it's me. Hello, somebody? You're going to have to say, let me evaluate my heart. What are the words that are contained in my heart? And why is it I'm always using this word for every situation? You ain't never been right. Uh-oh. Obviously, this text is on target. Y'all trying to dodge this stuff, boy, you ought to see your head moving. He ain't talking about me. James 3, verse 6 says, the tongue is like a spark. It is an evil power that dirties the rest of the body and sets a person's entire life on fire with flames that are from heaven, from hell itself. So when we find ourselves complaining and acting all ungodly like, we are portraying the attitude of hell itself. And you want to ask yourself, why come so much hell is up in your house? It's probably because you showed up today. The writer of Proverbs 16:27 speaks according to the Holy Spirit concerning God's position on the matter of people whose tongues speak words that burn like flaming fire. God refers to these kind of people as worthless. I had to pause most of last night to think about that. Am I worthless? Because of the words that I use. Listen, let me say this. What he's really saying is that if your language, your conversation, the way you talk to somebody that you say you love is abusive, then you're worthless. Because you're not living up to that which you say that you are. Okay. Let me get on this side over here. Listen to me carefully. When we, it's amazing to me, I put it this way, how we'll go out our way to take care of inanimate things, and the very adamant thing that's in your life, you won't even buy a Christmas card or a birthday card or a makeup card or a I'm remembering you card. Do I have any help in the house? Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And it's an endangerment to your home. It's an endangerment to your own life, to your own success in life, when your heart is not properly filled with the words that can move you forward versus burning up everything that's around you. And the truth of the matter, most of us don't realize that we have set our whole past and present on fire. And the only hope to putting out that fire is your future. Okay. Listen, when you consider Matthew 6:45, he says, out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaketh. It's simply saying that everything in your heart, that's what your mouth going to speak. It cannot speak anything else but what's in your mouth. What's in your heart, your mouth can only speak that. Your tongue. You can't come up with no new words. And any new word that you come up with, you probably can't spell it. Because it's not in your heart. The things that's in your heart, you know how to spell. You know how to write. You get that on the way home. Listen to this. Everything in Matthew 15:18, and it reads, but the words that come out of your mouth comes from your heart, and they are what makes you unfit to worship God. Anytime you have a complaining spirit, all that can come out of your heart is complaining words. And these complaining words, per our first two verses in Numbers,